I met Fred several times because John Lively was the organist at Third Presbyterian Church. I had auditioned for John, and he had hired me to be the tenor soloist. When I sang in the choir, I stood very close to Joanne Rogers, and we were bantering back and forth, and she proved to be a dynamite woman who could tell a joke. Oh, she could make you laugh. And so while the choir was doing the bass or the sopranos, she and I were gossiping and being a little bit frivolous. And I grew very, very fond of her. And she said to me, "You've got to meet my husband." And I thought that was the most non-meaningful thing I didn't know who her husband was. I didn't care. I was very, very happy with her. Well, there were a couple of services. We were sitting there in the choir, and she said, "That's my husband over there. See that man? That's it." And then the one day I was rehearsing. I and the musical director were very close musically. We really hit it off. I learned a lot. I mean, a lot from being with this musical genius. And I mentioned to him, I love singing American Negro spirituals, so much so that I put a special program together for Good Friday. Just like at Christmas time, they have lessons and carols. I said, there is a equal way of doing American Negro spirituals, and we could sing "Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child," "He Never Said a Mumbling Word," "They Roll the Stone Away," "Sweet Little Jesus Boy." There's a whole selection of spirituals that fit the Easter story, as sad as it is. I'm sorry. So I put those together and I said, "John, can we do those for Good Friday church service?" And he said, "Well, we've never done anything like that. We've always had it very quiet and pious, like Good Friday. We've never done a service like that." Well, I convinced him, and he convinced the pastor, and we got together and we put a program together. And I'm telling you, they put up a couple posters, and on Good Friday, for the most part, the church was packed, and it's a big church. And they said, "We've never had anything like this on Good Friday." So when I started singing, "And he never said a mumbling word, not a word, not a word," you could hear a pin drop. And they just, I could tell they were, how you say they're eating out of your hand. They loved the reading of the biblical scriptures and then singing something. "Oh, the angels roll the stone away. Oh, the angels roll the stone away. Was on that Easter Sunday morning when the angels rolled the stone away." And what was very important to me was I almost was singing as though I was in a black church. The organist was fantastic. He understood not to, give me all this heavy organ accompaniment, but just enough to underscore, the melodies and the songs and the traditions that I was trying to share with him. Many, many, many black people identify with Jesus as having been innocent, but yet you were slayed, you were killed, and he was crucified in his day, supposedly the only perfect person who never committed a sin. What did? They crucified him. Here were black people that they came, they kidnapped from the coast of Africa somewhere, and because of their color, they brought them to America and made them into slaves. We identified very strong with the biblical story. Well, at the end of that service, there probably wasn't a dry eye in there. And many, many, many of those very kind people came up to me and told me how much it meant to them, what a deep gift it was. And it was just about over. Everyone had left, and I was so tired, happy and tired. And I was about to leave, and someone said, no, don't go yet. Fred wants to say hello. He loved the presentation at the service. And sure enough, he came over to me, and I stood patiently and greeted him, which he deserved. And I said, have you had anything like this before? And he said to me he had never been so moved by a Good Friday service. He said he was filled his heart. And he said to me, "Where'd you get the idea?" And he was asking me certain questions. So I knew he was sincere. This was not a frivolous man. So we engaged in a real conversation. And he said to me, "Can we get together? I'd like to talk to you more. I want to know more about you and your life and why you sing these songs and what they mean to you. And I said, fine, as long as you're paying for it. We laughed. They laughed at me. I said, well, I'm a student. Graduate students don't have very much money. And I had taken out a loan, even though I had what they call a full ride to go to Carnegie Mellon. I still needed money to live off of. So I was not going to any restaurant with a white man and pay for it, whom I barely knew. So sure enough, I went with him to that lunch at Stouffer's restaurant. And hallelujah, what a beginning. Because as you can tell from our session here, he never stopped listening, and I never stopped talking. It was like, to use the right phrase, a union, a partnership made in heaven. There I was with someone, I had his absolute attention. He had a way of, I say in the book, of touching you, of hugging you, and he never touched me. He was so kind. He was so embracing of me as a troubled human being. So to make a long story short, one day I flew down from New York to be with him. He had become very much my mentor, and I was a young, what I would call protege, but very naive and not aware of many things. And I came to the studio to be with him, and he was saying, as he does to the camera, you make every day a wonderful day, a special day. And you know how? Just by being you. And I love you just the way you are. Those were like magic words from heaven. I heard, and he was looking right at me. He was looking at me in such a way. I was hypnotized. I was captured. And he walked. Johnny Costa had some exit music to play. So he was busy, and it was wonderful music that day. And Fred walked off the set, and he came around. He was coming that way, and I was coming to meet him. And so we met them. We waited until Johnny finished playing, and Nick, who was the floor manager, said, "Cut! We got a good one." And I stood there and I said, "Fred, were you talking to me?" And he said, "Yes. I've been talking to you for 2 years, but you heard me today." Well, my heart overflowed. Something inside of me, I'm serious, in my solar plexus went click, and the stars went off, and the pounding. Here's someone who loves me, Fred, and he embraced me. I started crying. I couldn't stop. I saw him from that day on as a spiritual entity, energy, chemistry. I didn't see him as a white man ever again. When I talked to him, he elevated me to something. I just have to tell you the truth. It was so sacred what this man did to me, for me. And I love him to this day. Whew. The whole time I was writing that book, I'm in my office. It was like he was here with me, helping me, telling me what to say. When I ran out of ideas, it's like he gave me a new energy, a new impetus. And I loved him so much. From that day on, I held him close, and he held me close. And I have to say, there are a lot of people in the Mr. Rogers neighborhood family who didn't understand this spiritual bond that we had bonded together, so powerful that I would come down to Pittsburgh with nothing to do and just sit and be around with him. What he was doing is something that people used to do. They don't do it anymore. When you have a mentor and you have a protege, the protege learns being around the master. Oh, hallelujah. The one who is telling you who you are, what to do, how to tell the world about unconditional love. That's what he gave to me. I give it back unconditionally. I'm not a frivolous person. I don't suffer fools. Pay attention, because I've got something to say. I've been given something extraordinary.